Good evening to all of you. You're watching Lok Sabha TV. I'm Anurag Puneta with you. India's neighbor and an island nation in the Indian Ocean, Sri Lanka, was ravaged by decades of the civil war that ended in 2009, that we all know. But it has little history of militant Islamist violence, though allegations of ethnic cleansing have been rampant on Sri Lanka's successive governments. But yesterday, series of explosions rocked Sri Lanka on Easter, that was called Easter Sunday, and at least 290 people and approximately 300 people have been killed so far, and the numbers are rising. And 500 more injured in these blasts. Most of the dead are believed to be Sri Lankans, but officials also saying about 30 people from other countries have also been killed. No one has claimed responsibility so far for these attacks. But Sri Lanka's Defence Minister, Mr. Ruvan Wijewardene, said that the culprits had been identified and were religious extremists. The Prime Minister, Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe, convened Sri Lanka's top military officials at an emergency meeting of the National Security Council. Curfew also has been implemented on Monday in Colombo, and major social media and the messaging services, including Facebook and WhatsApp, have also been blocked by the government to try to curb the spread of the misinformation. As the reports are also coming that the Sri Lanka security forces were warned at least 10 days before the bombings that the group planned suicide attacks against churches, but apparently took no action against it, and it indicating a catastrophic intelligence failures also. So when the word is echoing the concern against growing terrorism, how this attack has taken place, in next half an hour, we will examine the possible reasons of this attack and how this will change the complexity of the Sri Lanka society, where the relations between the various religions and religious groups have already been frayed and loosely hinged. And does it also pose serious trouble to other countries like India in the next half an hour?
The attack in Sri Lanka yesterday is so shocking on so many levels. One thing, of course, being the death toll. This is the deadliest single terrorist incident in South Asia, as I understand it, since the Mumbai attacks back in 1993. I mean, we're talking at this point of almost 300 people dead in Sri Lanka. It's simply horrific. Also, it's so shocking just because Sri Lanka had been finally enjoying a semblance of stability and peace after several decades of civil war. The fact that it's approaching a decade since it's ended that civil war. So I think that makes it all the more heartbreaking and all the more difficult for Sri Lanka to deal with this horrific attack at this time, after coming just a decade after so many years of horrifying civil war. What's also shocking, though I know that facts are still coming in, information is still coming in, is the perpetrator. No one has claimed responsibility. And typically, when you have an Islamist extremist group like ISIS carry out an attack, it claims responsibility right away, and there hasn't been that at all. You know, as we understand it now, it seems that Sri Lankan officials are suggesting that a local Islamist extremist group has been implicated in the attack. It's a group that no one seems to have heard of, including people in Sri Lanka. The idea of a small domestic Islamist extremist group that up to this point has really done little else but carry out acts of vandalism against Buddhist statues. The fact that a group like that, with those modest capacities, would be able to carry out this large-scale, mass casualty, extremely sophisticated attack, it's unbelievable, which suggests to me that this group, if it did carry the attack out, had to get some sort of help, and perhaps externally, and a logical helper would be the likes of ISIS or Al-Qaeda. But again, there haven't been any claims of responsibility, which really raises the question of who exactly was involved with this attack. Looking down the road a bit, this attack was clearly a big blow, short-term blow to Sri Lanka's image, its economy, and tourism. Sri Lanka depends a whole lot on tourism. Its economy is certainly driven by sectors like agriculture, but tourism is a major industry. Foreign tourists provided about $5 billion to Sri Lanka in recent years. And the fact that you had not only more than 30 foreigners killed in this attack, but also you had several five-star hotels where many of these foreigners stay. That suggests that, at least in the short term, foreigners are going to give pause before deciding to go to Sri Lanka. And Sri Lanka's economy has certainly enjoyed considerable growth in recent years, particularly as a period of stability after the civil war has given it an opportunity to grow and to attract foreign investment. But it needs revenue because it's suffering from significant debt. It's enmeshed in debt because of Chinese loans. That's put it in a very difficult spot. Looking forward, I think the key is what happens in the next few weeks or months. Will this attack bring out these long festering tensions, ethnic tensions in Sri Lanka? Will there be more violence? Will there be other attacks? Will there be other terrorist attacks? If so, you really have to worry about the long-term implications for stability in Sri Lanka, and you have to worry about long-term economic implications. If things manage to calm down, if this attack was a one-off attack, if cooler heads prevail and the authorities are able to arrest all the perpetrators and make sure that everything is taken care of, so to speak, then I think that Sri Lanka's long-term outlook will be somewhat more favorable. But just a terrible, shocking, tragic attack.
And joining me for the discussion, Major General Ashwini Sivach, Defense and Strategic Analyst. Major General Sivach has also been to Sri Lanka in 2009 when the civil war ended. Very warm welcome to the show, Mr. General Sivach. My second guest is Mr. Pathkrit Payan, Senior Policy Analyst. Mr. Payan has also been to Sri Lanka to understand that how the things are taking place in the society over there. But would be starting with you, General Sivach. How do you see, this sort of attack, when in recent times, since 2009, when the civil war ended, there was a kind of a calm in island nations. How do you see this terror attack has taken place?
See, Anurag, you have to see it like this. After 2009, they were fighting against LTT, which was one of the finest terrorism group which was available in the world. They are the one which brought Fidayeen. And to some extent, Sri Lanka was very successful in totally wiping off LTT in 2009. And thereafter, and their counter-terrorism structure was very good. Their intelligence coordination was very good. And they managed to completely defeat LTT and even kill the total leadership of that.
Of LTT? Of
LTT. No, that is the time when they were on the top of it, everything was going very fine as far as Sri Lanka is concerned. But what happened is after they have done that, they came under a lot of pressure of those like war, there were some atrocities committed and all. After 2000, post-2009, their counter-terrorism structure totally dismantled. Their intelligence agencies stopped gathering intelligence. So the result was that now when this has happened, that this Islamic group which was functioning within Sri Lanka, the one which was a very small one, National Tawhid Jamaat, which came into limelight only last year when they were found basically the statue which was there of Buddhists, they were vandalizing that.
Okay.
But the issue today is it is not like this. Now this group which has come, this cannot do by themselves. It is a very well coordinated attack of 8 serial attacks where 3 churches were there and 3 international hotels were targeted. What was the aim? Aim was 2-3-fold. One was hit the foreigners. Another thing was try to create a communal disturbance on Eastern Mass. Third thing is that it cannot be done only by a small local group which was there prevalent in Sri Lanka. So therefore it has an international signature. It can be Islamic State or it can be Al-Qaeda. So this is a well coordinated, So now the point comes is why have they not got intelligence? The international agencies have given them in on 11th April that this sort of thing is going to happen in the churches. And also they gave it that it possibly might also happen on the Indian High Commissioner.
Okay.
But the intelligences within Sri Lanka have not reacted. Now, as you are aware of it, that the Prime Minister of Sri Lanka and the President, that is Sri Sena and Vikram Singhe, are not on the same page.
Okay.
So there is a tussle between them. It's a government versus government. So all this int which was passed by the international agencies, including India, were not passed to those who have to act on that. So the result was once this happened, the Sri Lanka was totally found wanting, and there was total confusion, and the the loss was heavy. So therefore, the issue which is coming today is where Sri Lanka, which was able to defeat LTT, today they are in such a situation that they cannot act on an int which was given by international agencies.
So it means in totality we can say that Sri Lanka has been caught off guard.
Absolutely correct, very
Okay.
correct.
Okay. Patkat, your understanding, I mean, can we say that Sri Lankan securities apparatus has somehow been little lazy in that manner, and Sri Lanka has been caught off guard by the sudden attack?
Yeah, Anurag, I'll just add to what General Siwaj said, that when you have a decisive victory against a formidable adversary, you tend to be a little complacent. You tend to be thinking that I have defeated my biggest enemy, so I don't need to do anything else. So that is one reason. I mean, from my personal experience of my visits there, I have seen that even during 2013, 14, 15, when ISIS was at its peak, a lot of people from India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and including Sri Lanka were going and joining ISIS in Syria. Countries like India were taking a lot of action to make sure that once they come back, or if they are stopped from going, the de-radicalization architecture was created. A lot of effort was made to make sure that online radicalism can be controlled, if not entirely eliminated. Unfortunately, in Sri Lanka, in spite of the fact that they have a battle-hardened army, unfortunately that time they were not taking that threat to that extent seriously as they should have taken. I've seen that Gaul Road where that hotel was present, where that Shangri-La hotel where the attack happened. I was staying in the Taj Samudra.
Okay.
The basic architecture over there, very simply, I mean, it was, you would have a couple of fast attack crafts, you can see in the sea, because one of the thing that the LTT used to do was to have coming by speedboats, entering the city and trying to do something, or ram into some other ship. So you would have some two Super Devora fast attack craft standing. One of the challenges that Sri Lanka had is that of how to handle the army, which was 2 lakh that time. During the war, it was expanded. So they were put into typical road duties. You can see Sri Lankan army personnel on the roads, in airport, just to doing police duty. That was not the job of the army. So these things happen. One more important thing, after all this happened, there's a cost of war. After they defeated LTT, they were into severe financial crisis, managing the finances of the cost of war. Secondly, they had these external foreign exchange reserve related crises, issues related to China taking over things, paying back debt. So the priority of a country which was predominantly about saving the country from terrorism shifted towards financial stability.
Okay.
That is one thing. And even though, as sir also said, that this organization was there, but they never expected it to do something like this. Whereas in country, it's not that they are in a very peaceful vicinity. If you look at Maldives, it is a hotbed of what happens in terms of radicalism. Sri Lanka is an island, so it's not that difficult for people to just come over, or through ship or some way and do all the things. And this, beyond that, if you look at again this terror attack, it is a professional work. It is probably a few degrees higher in notch of quality from what 26/11 was done. So the template is very similar: attack hotels, destroy tourism, attack. That time that was Shabad House, which was the Jewish who were attacked. In this case, the Christians have been attacked, and they are not taking responsibility. Somebody is not, whoever has done it, most probably the Tawhid Jamaat, for fear of backlash. That is because but I'm sure once it has happened, even though they are late in reacting. One thing fortunate about Sri Lanka is that they don't have the pseudo-secularism of politics. So now that they have, they will be very careful and they'll do whatever is necessary. Hopefully, it doesn't become a communal fight, because in a fight against terrorism, if it becomes communal, then it doesn't help. Because in Kashmir also, if you see, fighting against Islamic terrorism, the Kashmiris are also playing a very critical role in fighting against them. So hopefully it doesn't become communal, but Sri Lanka has a history of 1983 when the Sinhalese and the Tamil fight happened. I think that was one fear in them to make, so that's the reason they didn't become very ruthless against some of these organizations. Surprisingly, you had these videos of that guy, Zaran Hashim, who is the main suicide bomber. The videos were there in YouTube. Not much action was unfortunately not taken. In case of India, Indian government has been ruthless on these. There were some people who were caught a few years back who were just, they were doing all these things. They were arrested. Somebody was working in an FMCG multinational company. So we were a little probably in an advantageous situation.
It's a very well coordinated effort by whoever done it. No organization has taken responsibility. But what has been what you're giving the twist on the social media that it is an what you call the reaction what happened in New Zealand. So probably you are discounting the.
See, we cannot completely discount it, but this kind of professional work, it takes time. It can't be done in 1 month. There are a lot of dry runs, I'm sure. Now, what has happened with ISIS, when they were on the verge of getting defeated in Syria and Iraq, they started telling all the recruits and all those people who have come that go back to your own country and do it there. So, terrorism by ISIS has been outsourced. These are the organizations who are executing it, but the module, the weapon systems. See, you can't get detonators like that. And I'm sure when you have a backpack, in case of say Pulwama, there are 300 kg of explosives. If you have a backpack, so that means the amount of explosive that you can carry is very limited. But with that kind of explosive, you can create this kind of devastation. That means it is an RDX. The detonators you will not find easily. So somebody has, the logistics was very, very well coordinated. So I'm sure there are external elements involved. Execution was done by locals. And sorry to say, Sri Lanka, in spite of the fact that they are one of the finest armed forces in terms of fighting terrorism, they have been completely caught off guard because they were complacent, presuming. Even today, unfortunately, just one more point. Their entire objective I've seen in 2013, 14, 15 were to make sure that LTT does not get revived, not to fight the newer terror threats. So evolution of counter-terror warfare probably somewhere a little lacked, and they were a little overconfident. Hopefully, sadly what has happened, hopefully they will improve.
General Sevach, as we all know that, and probably you have, must have seen from close quarters, that whatever the religious groups in Sri Lanka, Buddhist, Tamilians, and Christianity and Christians and the Muslims, they have not been very in good terms. And what you call the bonhomie between the religious communities are not very good. The relations are very frayed. So why Christians community has been targeted? Only the 6% of the population of Sri Lanka make up the Christians so far. Do you think that's some sinister move by let's say some international organization, or let's say within the local groups as well?
See, Anurag, first of all, now as far as the demographic structure of Sri Lanka is concerned, 70% is the Buddhist, and then 13% are the Hindus, and almost 10% are then the Muslim, and only 6 to 7% are only Christians. The Christian. Now, the fact is that after 83, the whole focus was against the LTT, and the seemingly fighting against the Tamilians. And this was the fight which was there, and this was basically in northern and the eastern portion, and it confined to that. So it became the LTT versus rest of it. Now, as far as the Christians are concerned, and you can say Muslims are concerned, they were not being targeted. Now, the Christians are actually the binding force of Sri Lanka, because the Christians are there in Tamil mainland, also in Sinhalese also. So they were considered as a binding force in Sri Lanka, whereas they have been targeted. Now the point, as far as the Muslims are concerned, since the Islamic State has come over, and this Islamic radicalization is taking all over the world, especially in South Asia. Now closing our eyes may be not correct. So those countries which are on a denial mode will suffer. And so is the India. We must understand the southern portion of India, there are certain elements which have gone for Islamic State. In Syria and Iraq, they have been defeated, but the ideology still stays there. They have come to their parent country and they are there, and they are being coordinated. So the issue today is coming, why the Christian were targeted, maybe to the extent that they want to send a message to the world, because the tourism, as far as Sri Lanka is concerned, they are doing extremely well on tourism. Last year they have done the best in the world. So they were trying to hit. They have also hit the international community. That the foreigners have been hit. So it will happen like this. So my point is, as far as the Islamic militants are concerned, whether they are local and given a support by Islamic State and all, the fact is that this is a threat for future. and the sooner we realize, the better it is. And as we were trying to convey that what has happened in Maldives is their neighbor as far as the sea is concerned.
Yeah.
There is a Wahhabism which has come, there is a radicalization which is taking place. So therefore, my point today is the Islamic radicalization is a ground reality which is spreading its wings, and we all in South Asia need to coordinate that. In fact, India was sent them a lot of agencies. Unfortunately, Sri Lanka today politically weak because there is a fight going between President and Prime Minister. They have not acted on agencies. Now they have to now what they do is forget the past and now move ahead and take action against this Islamic State elements if they want to get out of this model.
Okay, Mr. Anand Jha, and the former Indian High Commissioner of Sri Lanka, has joined me over the phone. Very warm welcome to the show, sir. As we all know that the outlines of Sri Lanka's historic troubles, don't you think that Sri Lanka has been caught off guard by attacks? Because people are saying because after 2009 when the civil war ended, somehow this what you call the entire security apparatus has gone into what you call. Are you listening, sir?
I'm listening. Yeah, please.
So, what do you think that? How do you see this present Islamic attack that has occurred in Sri Lanka?
Look, a couple of things I want to mention.
Okay.
First and foremost, it is true, in my opinion, my assessment also, that after 2009 May, when the treaty was vanquished, and that I think Sri Lanka began to relax after that. So, after a long civil war of 30 odd years, it was quite natural. But after relaxing for a while, they should have got alert again. After all, the rest of the world was suffering from Islamic terror, and there's no reason to believe that they would not, because the Buddhist Sangh there had become more active and more aware of the hard situation there, and there have been incidents between Buddhists and Muslims even last April. Both sides have been inflicting casualties on each other and destroying. For example, the Buddhist statues were being destroyed, defaced, and all that. So they should have been more alert. I agree with you.
Okay.
Now, what I'm trying to say is that we have to be also careful of one thing. I sincerely hope, and I'm sure it won't be, but let's hope that this is not a rehearsal by the Islamic fundamentalists. Not a rehearsal for something equally big, which they may be planning for India.
Okay.
So we have to be very careful also. Thirdly, that I also feel that some way it's a revenge for what happened in Christchurch in the mosque there. So these three factors are there. Somebody said that one of your chaps said that the tussle between the president and the prime minister is also resulting what happens in bureaucracy normally. When everybody knows that there's a tiff between the two, people like obviously take sides, consciously or unconsciously. Now that results in a weaker administration all around. It affects the intelligence gathering also. So all these factors are there. We have to do our best.
Okay.
Well, number one, to bring the two together. It shows their own interest and everybody's interest in this area. And secondly, that the Tamils of Sri Lanka, even after the defeat of the LTT, are not completely happy with the things are going. For example, the north and the east provinces, which had been merged into one in 1987, as a follow-up to the Rajiv Jayawardena agreement, they have been demerged again. Now that is something the Tamil population is very sensitive about, because Eastern Province in 1948, when they became independent, had 74% Tamil population. But now in 81, just before the civil war started in all fury, they've gone down to 44%. So all these factors are there, and somehow we have to work towards reconciling them as discreetly and without publicizing, and nobody should know. Otherwise there'll be furor there. And it's in our interest now, because Chinese presence is also growing there. Not as much as in Nepal, but it's growing. So we have to quickly hurry. Then whatever projects we have, we must finish them on time.
But main tussle in the Sri Lankan society has been between the Buddhists and the Tamilians. So what do you see? How do you see the reason that Christians have been targeted?
LTT, but not now. After that, the Buddhist tongue has become there, more militant against the Muslims and the Christians. But mainly, Christians only about conversion, but they have not taxed their churches and all that. And also this type of planning, precise planning. The 8 places are attacked almost within a few hours or half an hour of each other.
Okay.
It's too precise, and the Islamic terrorists are well coached in that.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Jha, for talking to us. Mr. Anand Jha, the former Indian High Commissioner to Sri Lanka, who served from 1990 to 1993. But Patkar, what Mr. Jha said, I mean, we have to be quite cautious as well, because seeing the proximity between the two nations, and then we have had our own past. I mean, we were not very good terms as far as the Tamilian crisis was concerned. So how do you see that? I mean, the security through security angles?
Well, Anurag, in the last 3-4 years, I think by my count, around more than 20 such modules of ISIS related organizations in India planning such kind of strikes were neutralized by government agencies, in coordination with the states and the central agencies working together. So yes, the threat is very much profound. Secondly, if you look at Sri Lanka, I think in that case, if you look at between India and Sri Lanka, that place, Indian Coast Guard generally does pretty good, guarding, but there has been this history of a lot of people from Sri Lanka coming to India by boat, especially that exodus started when the war was at its peak. So a lot of Tamilians used to come, but it might be taken as an advantage by somebody else also to try to sneak in. But if ISIS kind of an organization try to do something like that in India, God forbid, they don't need to come from Sri Lanka. There are other also areas from which they can do it pretty well. If you look at, there are certain pockets of radicalization which has happened in case of South India also. So it's not that South India is absolutely without any kind of radicalism or threat of any kind of attack. The most important thing here is that it is time for a lot of these South Asian countries to work together. And I'm sure there are areas where India is working with Sri Lanka. There are issues, as you rightly said, about the Tamilian issue. So India has been doing mostly humanitarian work rather than trying to help them on army related or defense related thing.
That's right.
But today the threat is common across the spectrum, whether it's for Sri Lanka, whether it's for India, whether it's for Bangladesh, and Maldives is an issue. Another point I want to mention, one of the reasons, see, these organizations always try to create a sense of anger by showing certain examples. Sri Lanka being a predominantly Buddhist country, they have been trying to show the example of Myanmar, these terror organizations, and to show that, look, this is how the Buddhist so-called allegedly persecuted the Rohingyas. So and that is one of the reasons for creating that anger among these radicalized people within the country to do something. But the reason they did not target any Buddhist monastery is because the fear of a massive backlash. Because they have seen what the Sinhalese, in case of the Tamil and Sinhalese problem. It's a very tactical thing. Because most of the tourists who come are either Christians, more from the West, or Indians. That is one.
Okay. On very short now, 30 seconds I need from your response. That, I mean, we have to be cautious and cagey. But don't you think that somehow when the growing concern against terrorism is increasing worldwide, I mean, so probably we may find some silver lining in this crisis as well. And at least the world community will come together to fight against terrorism.
Absolutely, Anurag. Point is that India has come a long way. In fact, of last 5 years, our infrastructure and coordination of int agencies as well as counter-terrorism agencies have been far better than any other South Asian country. But we need to not put our guard down. There is a requirement of coordinating all int agencies of South Asia. We are sometimes on a denial mode, thinking that the thing is going to happen to us, we are able to control. May not be correct. The southern portion of India is vulnerable for Islamic State. There are certain modules which have gone and have radicalized, and we have to accept this as ground reality. If you would have asked Sri Lanka that there are certain people who have gone and radicalized, they said completely no, it has not happened. So now the point is, today the world is not able to understand why have they targeted Christian community. We are not able to find this answer, because the reason is that this Islamic State is known for doing something like this, to divide the community, create a communal disharmony, also target the foreigners, let the business laws come. So the point is, it has kept the whole world on tenterhook.
Okay.
So the realization should be, as far as the terrorism is concerned, it's a common enemy. We need to get together and fight against us as a common enemy. This must be understood, and India should be a partner to this, because what has happened to Sri Lanka is not too far off from India.
Yeah, exactly. That can happen to any
One
other
small
country.
point, Anurag, just 2 seconds. We are fortunate that we have not seen major terror attacks in Indian cities in the last 5 years beyond Kashmir. But that cannot be a reason for complacency. The threat is very much there. The root cause of radicalism has to be addressed, not just killing the terrorists.
So no one can afford to be too complacent at the moment, and probably the Sri Lanka paid the price of being complacent after 2009. And we all know that the these bombing have somehow also damaged the very frayed sentiments of the Sri Lankan society, and this unfortunate thing happened in Sri Lanka. But probably we can find, or the world community can find, a silver lining in this attack, that world community can come together to fight against terrorism. What happened in Sri Lanka should not be repeated or should not happen in any part of the world. That's all we have in this edition of Public Forum. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for coming and talking to us. That's all we have in this edition of Public Forum.